Hello again. Now that we've got the framing done, it's definitely time to get some roofing done. And this is, again, like the last time, something that I wanted to make sure we got done in one shot. So I've already got the pieces cut for the rafters, and so I'm just securing the two end rafters, and then I can space everything in the middle based on how it needs to be spaced. Put everything and get it all secured in. And I have to admit, I thought this was a better camera angle because it would show where I'm at, but now I'm kind of realizing that I guess the camera should have been a little higher. Or apparently I needed the light on already. It's kind of dark under there. Typical cloudy Washington day, though. Oh, I take that back. Typical cloudy, rainy Washington day. But it's all good. So at the moment, I'm actually off camera cutting the bird blocks. And I had the idea that if I put the bird blocks for the two ends above where the closets are going to go, then I can put them in, put the next two rafters in, divide that final space in half minus the thickness of the final fifth rafter, and then get an exact spacing. So I brought one of the blocks over and just kind of paste it all out, and I'm going back to cut the rest of them. And now I can put them all in place. And I've got the 4 bird blocks, and I've got the 4 spacers slash ledger header attachments for the top end so that I can screw the top of the roofing down into it. And it's always a little surprising once you've done something the first time and kind of figured everything out, how much time you can really save by doing things the second time. So, for instance, doing the framing and rafters and roofing, for the first time I learned quite a few things I could do differently to speed things up, and pre-cutting those bird blocks was definitely one of them. One of the other ones that you'll see in a minute here is I decided that I was actually going to use a board across the top of the rafters before I put the flashing up. And yes, I did remember that it's called flashing this time. But that way, when we go to put the actual roofing metal on and slide it under the flashing, it'll have enough spacing that I'm not trying to force it. It has the downside of the need to have a little bit more gap. So I'm definitely going to have to fill that. And see, there we go. Now I've got a little bit better angle for you. But so that'll allow the metal to slip under it easier, but then it'll take a little bit more foam when I get to that point to actually fill that space, just to make sure that bugs can't get into the wall there. So that's what I just put up there right now, was actually a piece of siding, so it's a little over. It's like 1 1/16 or 1 1/8 inch thick cottonwood board that I can just set up there as a spacer. And I'm trying to find the grinder at the moment. I thought I was. Apparently I was grabbing nails. That's one of the things that definitely sped this side up. Also. So when you're doing the board and batten, you've got to make sure that there's places to actually attach everything. So you've got to have a board across the top, you've got to have a board across the bottom. If it's, taller than 2 feet or so, then you add another girt. And then since the end pieces are going to have some cutouts for the rafters and things along those lines, then I like to actually add a little bit more filler material as well, so that whole area is just solid. So at the moment I'm just double checking to make sure that 3 pieces is really all we need, because I thought we needed more on the other side, and so I actually had an extra 12-inch section cut, and that turned out to not be the case. And then I can also use the same measurement to build the fascia board, although I ended up deciding, based on just the scrap pieces that I have right now, instead of wasting one of my floorboards, which are 12 feet long and between 8 and 12 inches wide, I used a couple pieces of smaller scrap and cut that fascia into 2 sections. It's technically not the greatest way to go, but I mean, I don't think it's going to actually hurt anything by doing it that way. It just means there's a little bit of a seam and it's not as smooth all the way across. You can't really see it yet, but one of the rafters was a little bit off. I don't remember. I don't think it was as bad as the other side where we had to try and ratchet it. I think I just used a hammer and pounded it in place, but I guess we'll find out in a moment. That's what took so long, was trying to get that all ready. But there's the first one, and I ended up putting this block up there, and obviously not needing it because I didn't use the full length. The idea behind that was I could take the full length fascia, set the one end in that block, and then go attach the other end and be able to do it one-handed. Oh, yep, I did use a ratchet to pull that one down. Now these trees above this are a little worrisome, but they're going to disappear sooner than later. That's one of the sad truths about our property, is that our forest is basically doomed. So there's 16 acres of ash forest, and they're pretty good sized ash. I mean, most of them are 9 to 16-ish inches in diameter and The larger ones are upwards of 24 to 28 inches in diameter at breast height, and they're all in the 100+ foot tall range. But because they're ash, and the emerald ash borer has been in Portland, Oregon now for a year and a half, it's basically literally a matter of time before it just gets here, and I'm kind of assuming that it could be here as early as next year. And since it has a 100% mortality rate, there's not much we can hope to do. We can't afford the treatment to. There's a pesticide for it that you can use. They inject it at the base of the tree, and you have to treat the tree every other year to keep it protected from the ash borer. And it's about $250 per tree. So that's not really a feasible thing for us. We might pick a couple of them that we really like and look at doing that, but the truth be told, I think there's better options, and especially since one of the reasons that this area has this ash forest is decades ago when they built the highway across the bottom of our property. They built that up, and all of the water coming down off the hill suddenly had nowhere to go, so it kind of ended up pooling in this portion of the property around here, of the land, and creating a just almost swamp. It does dry out usually about June, May-ish is when we start to being able to get around back out there with the tractor, and then it stays fairly firm and dry until the rains really come in October or November. But as we work the land and guide where we want that water to actually be, then that'll change whether or not the ash trees are going to thrive. And we've been trying to figure out how we can do that without losing this particular forest. But then, once that ash borer was confirmed in Portland, all bets were off at that point. And so, if we're going to basically decimate the forest because of the beetle, or to prevent it from getting here and exploding in growth, then we might as well just work the land like we would if we weren't trying to keep the forest, and then we can replant it with things like Doug fir and Oregon oak instead of Oregon ash. We'll probably plant a few cottonwoods and western red cedars where we're going to kind of congregate the water and guide that water too. We might plant some quaking aspens, which is kind of interesting because a lot of people think they're weeds around here, but they are, according to the state, they are native. They tend to grow a little bit higher in elevation, but they're still a native tree around here. So we'll probably plant some of those in some areas. We'll get some big leaf maples planted and things, just get a variety, because we're not trying to grow this property for commercial forest purposes. We're trying to grow it for a healthy ecosystem forest, and we want to keep it as healthy as we can. So that'll be the goal there. So anyway, yes, these trees, in case you're wondering, they do lean. These particular ones are actually pretty healthy. We haven't seen any signs of issue from them, so we're not worried about them yet. But in the next year or two, they will get taken down, and we'll get something else planted in their place. But now I'm working on getting all of the siding pieces up. And I have to apologize that it is so dark under there. I had hoped moving the camera up would make that a little easier to see what I'm doing, but clearly that didn't work so well. Someday I might eventually get a newer camera. I don't know that I'll go with GoPro. Now, interestingly, this is the second GoPro that we have, so there's something totally different, because now you can totally see the siding up there. Huh. Anyway, as I was saying, I might get a new action camera at some point, but I don't know that it'll be a GoPro because I don't like the way they name their files. It's really annoying. It's a rant for another time, but who knows? We'll see what the future holds. So, normally I wouldn't put the battens up at the same time as the boards, but since the lumber that I pulled these from has actually been drying for quite a few months, I figured they've probably already moved as much as they could, or are going to. And so I went ahead and threw the battens up for both. And the reason I chose that lumber is because I knew I wouldn't have access up there without like sliding on the roof. And as you can see, these panels definitely went up far easier and faster. I told Emily to let go because I thought it was up there well enough to stay put. Clearly I was wrong. So we'll just slip that into place and then start screwing these in, and like I said, this whole side, this whole bump out, framing it in and doing the roofing took about 2/3 the amount of time the left side did. So thank you for watching, though. We'll get on to some siding soon. God bless you and yours, and stay safe out there.